This is the Marching Revolution podcast.
Boots on the ground with a thunderous beat. Hearts in sync, our purpose complete. Map of the future drawn by our stride. Through the struggle we walk unified. Marching forward where no chains can hold.
Welcome to the Marching Revolution, where your trauma finally gets a uniform inspection, checking for crooked pleats, outdated stereotypes, and anything else that doesn't belong on the field or in the 21st century.
And where the revolution is not televised, it's judged, baby. I'm Edward Michael Francis.
And I'm Edward Michael Francis, too.
Yay!
Split down the middle like a bad costume scene.
Like you do.
Don't worry. It's just a side effect of the transness and Grallian 3 in Audacity.
Yup. We're so low rent, we're basically held together with duct tape and a free audio editor from 2006. If this podcast were a check, it'd bounce. Anyway, today we kick off a bold new 3-part series with an article titled Uniformly Unequal, Gender Dynamics in North American Drum and Bugle Corps.
Spicy.
Part 1 focuses on all-woman Drum and Bugle Corps, a legacy of resistance and rhythm. Written by...
Wait for it.
You guessed it. Edward Michael Francis.
Boom.
Again.
You can read the full article right now on Patreon, or just hang tight. We'll read it to you.
It's what we do.
Oh, and we've also got a brand new website, but don't go clicking just yet.
Aww.
Later in the episode, we'll spill the details and drop something else in the comments you're really going to want to see.
Suspense.
A lot to cover. Stick around.
Also, Myron Rosander Francis the cat is somewhere behind the desk right now, probably judging us harder than DCI ever could.
Myron has had it with everyone's nonsense.
Me too, Myron.
And the Democrats are the bane of their existence.
Me too, Myron.
As well as the Republicans.
Me too, Myron. Me too. Cue the sting.
Just a reminder, the Marching Revolution speaks for us.
No one else.
Not for any drum corps,
Nope.
circuits,
Uh-uh.
or organizations.
We're an army of one.
We're not official. We're independent.
Which is exactly why we can say the quiet parts out loud. You're welcome.
And just to name it, we know we sound pretty mask on the mic.
But for the record, neither of us identifies as a man. We're non-binary.
No men here.
Masculine presenting, sure. But gender? Wah, wah. That's a different cadence.
So when we talk about women in this activity, we're not speaking for them.
Right.
We're speaking with respect.
And in many ways, we're allies in our marginalization. Different paths, same uphill march.
Now, before we begin in earnest, it's worth noting single gender spaces can serve a purpose.
Oh?
There's solid research showing that for women, all-female classrooms often lead to higher performance in math and science.
Go on.
Especially when they're finally free from constant gender-based interruptions and pressure.
Right. A study out of Switzerland found that women in same-gender settings didn't just test better. They reported feeling more confident and less anxious about speaking up.
So yeah, those kinds of gendered spaces can be empowering. But when we flip that logic and start talking about all male spaces...
Let's just say the evidence doesn't hold up nearly as well. But we'll get into that in part 2. Stay tuned.
In the rhythmic pulse of Drum and Bugle Corps, where military precision crashes headlong into musical obsession, there's a story that rarely gets told.
Tell us about it.
All-woman corps, often mislabeled all-girl in the language of their time,
Sure.
were radical acts of defiance, marching, playing, and leading in a system designed to keep them out.
Wow.
These women picked up instruments and fights.
Girl, you know they did it in skirts and saddle shoes. Like, oh, you think this makes me less dangerous? Well, watch me outdrum your guy center snare. That's feminist rage with a practice pad.
Our article, Uniformly Unequal Gender Dynamics in North American Drum and Bugle Corps Part 1 is the first in a 3-part series here on the Marching Revolution.
Long enough title?
We will spotlight 27 all-woman powerhouses and trace the cultural, economic, and political forces that made them not only necessary, but revolutionary.
Because let's be real, these corps existed because the rest of drum corps said no girls allowed unless you can spin a flag or cook a meal. And even then it wasn't guaranteed.
As we all know, Drum Corps was born from post-World War I signaling units. Military malaise, male-coded, and soaked in the sweat of hierarchy and patriarchy.
Boys.
From day one, it marched to the beat of masculinity.
Hoo-ah!
The VFW and American Legion sponsored many early corps. Men dominated. Women could sew and maybe occasionally spin. Not drum, not blow a horn, and definitely never lead.
And if you think that sounds like ancient history, think again.
Oh my.
Santa Clara Vanguard was still gatekeeping women from horns and drums until the mid-80s. That's right, lady. Put down that trumpet and start dancing. No brass for you.
It was the structure, and it wasn't just one corps.
No, it wasn't.
Giselle Cadieux reminds us that many co-ed corps flat out refused to audition women on battery percussion regardless of skill.
Because heaven forbid a woman dares to match the double-stroke roll of some teenage boy named Travis who just discovered Hertas and now thinks he's the second coming of Dan DeLong.
Instructors dismissed women as too weak or unladylike to handle brass and percussion.
Naturally.
It was the old boys club, and Peggy Sue Snyder-Casey said it plain.
What'd she say?
Women had to fight for an entire season just to be tolerated, let alone respected.
So, what did they do? They built their own damn corps.
That's right.
Backed by churches, women's groups, even companies like Hormel. Yes, the spam people. These groups gave working class women access to music education, to leadership, to travel. That's right. Imagine it. Flags flying, horns blaring, and women carving independence into the field with every step.
Oh, I'm imagining.
Marching arts as liberation?
Wow.
Who'd have dared?
These corps were all powerful.
Powerful.
All-woman drum corps proved their ferocity, discipline, and excellence.
All women corps created community. Many have alumni groups that still reunite decades later.
Indeed.
The Royal Ear Mounties, for instance, marched their legacy right into the hearts of multiple generations.
That's receipts.
Yup. Their existence was a direct rebuttal to the myth that women couldn't handle drum corps. And honestly, they still are. Now let's talk about the women who cracked the glass ceiling. They marched in with mallets and shattered the drumhead. And speaking of, let's start with the percussion section.
Let's go.
The legendary Chicks with Sticks.
Yes.
Giselle Cadieux, Mary Gromko Murray,
Of course.
Peggy Sue Snyder-Casey, and Kelly Haupt. They were the blueprint, and they walked headfirst into hostile territory.
And somehow still had to smile through it while slaying their parts.
Yeah, they did, lady.
It's like they had to win the caption
Right?
and the popularity contest just to stay in the line.
Cadieux, who began in an all-woman corps, couldn't even get auditions with some co-ed lines.
Of course not.
Gromko Murray made it in, but the vibe was, you're here, but we're not thrilled about it.
Ugh.
Snyder-Casey, straight up hostility in Phantom's line until she outlasted the nonsense and earned respect.
Stupid boys.
You know, after a whole season.
And then Kelly Haupt marches into Blue Devil's all-male line in 82 and decides, yep, I'm going to take a photo of all the women snare drummers at retreat.
Greatest of all time.
That's showing up. That's showing out.
Their legacy doesn't stop at hard work. It lives on in programs like Rachel Taylor's Girls March
Huge.
and Aaron Arnold's Girls on the Drum,
Luminary.
creating actual spaces where women can grow their skills without the side order of misogyny.
But we're not in utopia yet. Look at top DCI battery lines. Plenty of women on bass or in front ensemble, but snare and tenor, still the least gender diverse.
Yeah.
That unspoken ranking inside the percussion section,
Still there.
it's saying the quiet part out loud.
And it's not just drums. They gate-kept the brass section, too.
Sure they did.
Judy Foster marched baritone with the DCA Sunrisers in 71.
Bass.
By 77, she was part of a national championship.
Powerhouse.
Bonnie Ott soloed on mellophone with Blue
And
Devils.
don't forget Carol O'Brien, first woman in the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps in 1976.
Nice!
Later, drum major of the Rochester Crusaders.
Say what?
True pioneer.
Sandra Opie gets a shout-out, too.
Absolutely.
Taught the Argonne Rebels brass lines that won 3 national titles in the 70s.
Apex.
Even though she's better known as a director, her teaching chops were undeniable.
These women often started in all-women corps like the Capitol Airs or Bandettes, and still had to climb uphill when joining co-ed corps.
Same story with Marlietta Matthews, though the activity barely talks about her.
Criminal.
She started with the Capitol Airs, marched with State Street Review, and finished her performing career with 27th Lancers.
No joke.
That's where she locked in her technique and basically launched her next act.
Exactly. Which includes teaching with just about every guard you've ever heard of. Capital Regiment, Bluecoats, Santa Clara Vanguard, even the Cavaliers indoor percussion.
That's right. A historically all-male drumline, and Marlietta was teaching movement.
Yes, she was.
Because excellence doesn't care about your gender, and neither did she.
She also taught Center Grove High School, Marian Catholic High School,
Wow, Marion?
Hebron High School, and still works with Missouri State.
Some people want credit. Others leave legacies.
Indeed.
Marlietta wrote a whole blueprint for the rest of us.
And while we're naming names, a few modern trailblazers deserve a standing ovation.
Like Stephanie Lee, Santa Clara Vanguard's first femme drum major in 2009.
Historic.
Standing on decades of resistance and rhythm.
Tell them about Nicole.
Of course, Nicole Casino stomped in and kicked the damn door off its hinges.
Beast.
In 2013, she became the first woman of color to march snare drum with the Blue Devils, and not just in the line, center snare.
Huh.
That's the one everyone watches, the heartbeat.
Eye of the storm.
She came from a tiny high school with a broken band program and still made it to the top of the mountain. That's what hard work and vision can do, especially when no one expects it from you.
She is still active today.
Yes, indeed.
Still teaching, still slaying,
Girl.
still lifting others up.
Solidarity.
Okay, drum roll, please.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now, give me a bugle call.
I'm not doing that. I have dignity. And neighbors.
Fair. But still, a roll call is in order, because this is where we name names.
Love it.
We're lifting up 27 all-women corps who marched in resistance with every step.
Goats.
They're revolutionaries in skirts, shakos, and sass.
Say it louder for the Captain Gatekeepers in the back.
Quick disclaimer before we dive in.
Of course.
This info is accurate to the best of our knowledge.
And by our, we mean the one person doing all the research, writing, producing, fact-checking, emotional processing, and snack management, split into 2 hosts through the power of studio magic.
If we get something wrong, please let us know in the comments. Gently. We're fragile.
And if you're from one of these corps and want to fill in the blanks, please do. Please mansplain to us how wrong we are. I know you want to, and we welcome that.
DCXmuseum.com documents over 800 all-women corps. Today we spotlight 27 of the most impactful thanks to DCI, Drum Corps Planet, and some beautiful archival deep dives.
It's a start.
Let's start with the Ventures from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Canadian legends, 5-time champions. In 1989, they took Class A. That's how you shut down a whole debate.
And with those horn lines, baby, they weren't playing.
Right.
They were playing.
Let's not forget the tuxedoed mannequins in their 1989 show.
Oh, yes.
Full-on formal wear, scattered across the field like some deranged fertility ritual.
Peak camp, peak commitment. You serve music and mannequin drama in the same production? That's how legends are made.
Next, St. Ignatius Girls, New York represent. Hey, taxi.
They gave Eucharist and ensemble blend. Amen.
Founded in '58, they brought military snap and feminine sparkle to every field they touched. Coated in Long Island grit.
With enough awards to fill a Billy Joel-size estate, they slayed DCI All-Girl,
Get it.
World Open, and Girl Corps International like it was a Sunday brunch.
Next, Autobahn Bonbons out of New Jersey.
My favorite.
Absolute killers. Beat the Madison Scouts. Yes, really.
Not surprising.
3 world-class snare drummers, a national championship, and my personal favorite Bonbon show, 1962, when they turned Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered into a jaunty march. Such a unique take on what's normally a ballad.
Bonbon said, "You want sweets? Here's some sugar with your ass kicking."
Hell yes. They were the first all-woman corps to regularly beat the boys, and they earned every inch of that respect. 1953 VFW runner-up by just a tenth.
Get it?
Then, in '56, they knocked out everyone.
Now, lady, don't get it twisted. They did it in fringe cowgirl outfits, playing Annie Get Your Gun with the cleanest drill of the decade.
Their drumline won the VFW, and their soloist was a snare queen named Rita Mason.
Yeah, Rita.
By the 1970s, they were outdrawing half the circuit.
And here's the encore. They merged in 1978, but the Bon Bon Alumni Chorus still sings today,
Classic.
keeping the legacy alive well into the 21st century.
Up next, St. John's Girls, back to Canada, Brantford's Pride.
Take off, Holzer.
Traditional drill, bold brass, and community roots deep in St. John's Parish.
Small town love.
They made it loud and local.
The Snow didn't stand a chance.
In the 70s, they were an all-woman powerhouse, topping charts in the Ontario Drum Corps Association and repping Brantford with pride.
They took home the Canadian all-girl title in 76 and 77.
Dynasty.
Back-to-back bangers in plaid skirts.
And shout out to their offshoots, St. John's Cadets, and even a feeder corps. This was a full-on ecosystem.
St. John's built legacy, community, and a damn good horn line.
Next up, Capital Airs, repping Madison, Wisconsin.
Dairyland greats.
Now, don't let the Swiss Miss uniforms fool you. This corps built a dynasty with 7 all-girl championships,
7?
U.S. Open titles, and a reputation for being unstoppable in purple.
They came from a newspaper ad, y'all.
Seriously.
One mom at Drums on Parade in 1969 said, "My daughter needs a corps." And 150 girls showed up.
That's a moment.
Within 5 years, they were national champions.
Jeez.
That's a glow-up. That's a full-blown revolution in pleats.
They marched Broadway shows, jazz charts, even a Billy Joel melody, and pulled off a DCI Division III finalist finish right in their home city of Madison.
What a homecoming.
That hometown crowd on their feet.
And when it was time to evolve, they helped launch Capitol Sound, integrating their history into something new without ever losing the soul.
Quite right.
Wisconsin Wizards. No notes.
Fireettes out of Norwich, Connecticut, founded in 1962 with backing from the local firefighters and VFW.
Fire!
Started off in parades, then stepped onto the competition field, quickly climbing.
Moving on up.
Second in Yankee Class B by '64, consistent top 6 through the '60s, and into all-girl finals by 1970.
Anna!
From 1973 onward, finalists and champions in AIO and DCI All-Girls.
Nice.
They even won the 1976 AIO crown.
They hosted the Festival of Music, racked up top 3 finishes year after year, and by 1977 were crushing US Open and DCI finals before folding in 1978.
Tragedy.
That's a tale of fire and legacy.
A member called the feelings wonderful and expressed lifelong gratitude.
There's your proof right there.
They didn't just fade, they burned bright and left an ember that still warms the history books.
They left keepsakes, memories, and 0 footprints in Bridgeport. Thank Satan below. queens know where not to go.
Up next, Bandettes, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario again.
Something in the water up there?
The last competitive all-woman corps, still performing into 2004.
The best.
They wore plaid skirts and marched with their dog mascot, Peanut.
Aww.
Aaron Weigel, 9 seasons strong, said it best. They built strong women.
Peanut deserves a trophy. So does Aaron.
Les Chatelaines of Montreal brought serious French-Canadian flair. Tight drill, crisp horns, and commanding presence through the 70s.
In 1983, they stormed into DCI Class A finals and won every single caption.
Sweet.
After placing 4th or 5th in several captions during prelims.
Comeback.
Honey, talk about dominating the story.
And yes, this was also the home core of legendary snare drummer Gisèle Cadeau. You've heard her name for a reason.
Oui, oui, bitches.
And finally, for this section, the Bandettes out of Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Okay, we take back what we said about Bridgeport. For now.
Founded in '63, they were born in the middle of the civil rights era in a tough working-class factory town. That's all woman core energy right there. Grit, faith,
Yep.
and a presence that said, "Don't you dare look away."
I can feel the punch in their brass line from here.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm across the country.
That's just the first 10, comrades. We still have 18 more.
Awesome.
So strap in.
And no, I'm still not doing your bugle call. Don't ask.
I really didn't.
You win this round. Let's keep this roll call going. We've got more revolutionary women's corps to highlight. Some famous, some forgotten. All worth remembering.
How many more are we talking?
20 more, give or take.
Cool.
Sit tight. We're naming names.
Respectfully, I will be Googling every single one of these as we go.
That's the spirit. Starting with the Jonettes from Leominster, Massachusetts. Founded in 1950 and affiliated with the Way Eagles, Sacred Heart Church, and VFW Post 1399. Their uniforms were red, white, and blue. By 1968, they'd placed second in both the VFW All-Girl Nationals and the World Open.
And despite losing 60% of their members after that season, they rebuilt fast. In '69, they fielded a massive ensemble.
Go, girl!
Horns, double bass drums, even timp-toms.
They stayed all-woman until at least 1986 before going co-ed and rebranding as the Jays. That final show was at the '87 American Legion Nationals in Boston.
They left an indelible mark.
The Royal Air Mounties, though? Absolute dominance. From 1954 to 1977, they racked up national trophies left and right.
Their cream-colored uniforms? Iconic.
Oh, yeah?
They had a rivalry with the Bonbons so fierce, alumni literally banned fraternizing.
I love that kind of pettiness. Then there's Arabella. We've only got a brief mention of them from Drum Corps Planet, but the name alone sounds like a mid-air leap. Next, the Norwood Debs from Massachusetts. They leaned into that debutante theme, but don't let that fool you. They had grit. Next, the Vacation Land Sweethearts, hailing from Port Clinton, Ohio, brought charm, resilience, and a name straight out of a 1960s postcard.
The Pompton Lake Stardusters made their mark in New Jersey's 1960s scene.
Love our Jersey girls.
And then there's the Media Fawns, which sounds delicate, but they marched with serious intensity. Founded in 1958 and rocking red, white, and blue, they started as a parade and exhibition corps before stepping into competition just 2 years later.
Fast track.
By 1962, they were already placing third in the national round robin, and they stayed in the fight through the decade.
Wow.
Finishing strong in multiple American Legion and VFW championships. These ladies weren't just showing up, they were building something. Sponsoring contests, repping the Eastern State Circuit, and pushing all the way through 1970.
Incredible.
They disbanded in 1971, but that name still deserves to echo.
Alpine Girls from La Crosse, Wisconsin. Sadly, details were limited on this one.
I blame men.
As well as Hormel Girls. Get this one.
Hormel?
They were corporate sponsored by the Hormel Corporation.
What?
Yes, the Spam people, touring nationally with music and marketing in one.
Mind blown.
More on them later.
Gotta love a marching billboard. The Catholic Daughters of America sponsored multiple groups, more faith-based roots behind this movement.
Catholic Daughters represent.
And closing this set, the Melodiers from Oswego, New York, later known as the Appalachian Melodiers.
Great name.
Founded in 1960, named for their signature brass sound.
Not many competitive records.
Sadly, no.
But they held it down in their local circuit. Another example of how working class communities gave rise to these groups.
Each one pushing back against the same wall.
How many drum beats?
One drum beat at a time.
We'll return right after this.
The rhythm of hope, it pounds in our chests. We won't stop until we've done our best. The world is ours to turn to flame, and from it we'll forge a brand new name. A brand new name.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, first of all, how dare you skip ahead?
Yeah.
But more importantly, we are deep into our roll call of revolutionary all-woman drum corps.
And the hits keep
Keep
coming. Each group tells us something different about place, identity, and the will to perform when every door says,
Keep out.
not for you.
We're picking up right where we left off with a few more show-stopping entries to round out this historical roster.
Hooray!
Let's keep going.
We've saved some gems for last. Honestly, if you're not feeling inspired by now, check your estrogen levels.
The Bells of St. Mary's. They were founded in 1956 in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, eh? Think tartan sashes, hometown pride, and some serious corn-fed stamina.
They weren't a top contender competitively, but they were active for 2 full decades, built a pipeline from middle school to high school, and even won Class C state fair title.
All about that community.
That kind of consistency is visibility, and part of the larger fight to make space for all-woman drum corps.
Next up, the Schaefer Ladies from Milwaukee. Founded way back in 1932. Named for a brewing company sponsor. They gave women a platform during the Great Depression.
Oh, gee.
That's radical mutual aid when women had been unable to vote only a generation before.
They were marching in parades when your great-grandfather was in short pants, and if you don't know what they are, look them up. They're hilarious.
The Señoritas, founded in 1957 in Monterey Park, California.
Ay, ay, ay.
They leaned into their Latinx identity with striking white blouses, red sashes, and black sombreros.
Sounds familiar.
Representation mattered, even then.
Southern California's scene was no joke, and they brought their own style to it. We love to see it.
Now, here's a fun one. The Erie Keynotes from Pennsylvania. A senior corps of women,
Hey, senior.
meaning they allowed members over the age of 21. Amazing fact, they were founded in 1931.
I think that makes them the oldest corps on this list, yes?
I think so.
Classic, not old.
Precisely.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Alberta Girls from Edmonton, Alberta.
Boom.
Brought some Canadian thunder to the field, especially in national competitions.
And Alberta Girls proved something we kept seeing from Canadian corps. Smaller ensembles, big impact.
Exactly right.
They brought the storm inland without the coast.
Next up, St. Catherine Marionettes out of St. Albans, New York. Their name, pure vintage gold.
Shining bright.
Tied to St. Catherine of Siena Parish. Their last recorded score was a 68.98 at the New York State American Legion Championships in the Bronx back in 1962.
Discipline disguised as daintiness. Classic move.
Last, but certainly never least, Crookston, Minnesota. Picture it.
Picture it.
The Great Depression. Money's tight, morale's tighter. And here comes an all-woman drum corps led by a Navy bandmaster who studied under John Philip Sousa.
What?
They dominated straight up,
Okay, Paula.
winning 4 straight American Legion Auxiliary State titles from 1932 to 1935.
That's right. While the world was falling apart economically, these women were raising their own money, stitching their own uniforms, and outplaying everyone in sight.
Indubitably.
No grants, no sponsors, just card parties, rummage sales, and a refusal to settle.
Wow.
That's resilience in rhythm.
In 1933, they were invited to the World's Fair and performed at Soldier Field.
Oh, is that all?
They were picked above every other corps in the country to perform for the National American Legion Auxiliary President.
And the town loved them so much that a jewelry store made 29 tiny dolls, one for each corps member, and dressed them in full uniform for a window display.
Adorable.
Try telling me that's not legendary.
So, that's it. Nearly 30 names, and that's barely scratching the surface.
Quite right.
There were hundreds of these groups.
Hundreds.
Each one a training ground, a refuge, and a revolution in uniform.
It's a bold, unbreakable underdog legacy that marched through every barrier. These corps shaped the entire marching arts landscape, and they did it while fighting every inch for space they should have had all along. All right, comrades, now let's talk about what all-woman drum corps really meant.
Yes, let's.
These groups were powerhouses.
Indeed.
Necessary.
Totally.
But also a paradox.
Right. They gave women the space to succeed, but only by keeping them separate in the first place. It's a battle-born legacy.
It is.
Gritty, defiant, and loud enough to echo through history.
Exactly. Within those fences, though, women thrive.
Completely.
Horn lines, drum lines, guard lines, free from that co-ed prove-it pressure.
Right.
No sideways looks from boys and shakos who think your drum's just for decoration.
Shout out to the Bon Bon Snare Lines and the Ventures Championships. Successful on every level.
Amen.
Loudly and proudly.
Still, the fact that they had to do it separately, that's where it gets messy.
Very.
It mirrors old feminist debates. Do we build our own table
Column A.
or demand a seat at theirs?
Right.
And that's a question we'll chase in parts 2 and 3 of this series.
Off the field, the resistance was just as real. The Royal Air Mounties literally banned fraternizing with the bonbons.
That's right.
But guess what?
What?
They both still made lifelong bonds anyway.
Forming sisterhoods. As a queer critic, I see these corps as proto-queer spaces.
Wow.
Women supporting women in defiance of the norms.
I never thought of it like that. And those norms played in women's faces, like the alleged policy from Gail Royer himself.
Ugh.
No women in the SCV battery. Not even allowed to audition.
So we hear.
Allegedly.
Which makes every victory from these all-women corps that much more revolutionary.
But, like all revolutions,
There it is.
this one hit a wall.
By the 1970s and 80s, things shifted.
What happened?
Title IX brought change. So did the rising cost of fielding a corps. And suddenly, that separate but thriving world started to fade.
What other famous female firsts can we talk about?
Let's start big. Going back to the Hormel Girls, 1947.
Oh, good.
All-woman corps, national tour, top-tier musicianship, but here's the kicker.
Oh, boy.
They got paid.
Paid?
Real salaries. Benefits.
Seriously?
They were literally on the Hormel company payroll.
Imagine that. Paid to play and serve realness in perfect block drill.
Sisters were doing it for themselves.
Meanwhile, most male corps were still living off concession stand hot dogs and hope.
And leading the charge, Donna Mae Baldnecker Burr,
Hero.
drum major of the Hormel Girls. And before that, the first woman bugler in the U.S. military.
That's historic.
She cracked the silence with an octave jump and never looked back.
Fast forward to 1969. The Gothield Cadets allow their first woman member in the color guard. Just one. But that opened the gates, and the flood of talent never stopped.
Never.
In between sewing their own uniforms, of course.
Oh, of course. Gotta keep it traditional, right?
Right.
Now, let's talk Margaret Mayer in the 1960s. She joins the Governors, becomes one of their first member queens, and eventually helps run the corps. Quiet girl boss.
And then, of course, the Madison Scouts, a founding corps, all male since forever.
And ever.
But in 2019, they voluntarily opened membership to everyone.
Imagine that.
No lawsuit.
Nope.
No scandal.
Nada.
Just aligning with the broader shift of the Boy Scouts going co-ed.
They absolutely made the right call.
Yes.
It was the end of a 70-year sentence and the beginning of a better chapter.
This list is blowing my mind.
Right?
Like actual women who kicked the doors down and said, I'll take that mace. Thanks.
Yes. Inject it directly into my drill veins. Who's next?
Marcia Henson, Phantom Regiment, 1984. First sister drum major to lead a corps on the DCI finals field. Drum Corps Planet confirmed it.
This is so cool.
You can practically hear the stadium lights crackle.
Imagine that podium moment. That's not just conducting. That's defiance in 4/4.
Real.
Who else?
Shelley Michelle Graff, Big Ten history maker. In 1981, she became the first female head drum major of the Ohio State University Marching Band.
Stop.
And she had to fight for it.
You think?
The OSU archives are proud of her now, but at the time, brutal resistance.
Oh, I know. They clutched every last pearl in the alumni section. That's a Buckeye breakthrough in full regalia.
Next, Mary Beth Johns Nisley. This is from the 1930s, okay?
Old school.
She's the first female drum major in her school and goes on to become the first woman warrant officer conducting the Women's Army Corps Band in World War II.
This.
Straight up conducting history.
Okay, that right there gave me chills.
Same here.
That's like Mr. Holland's Opus, but make it Miss Nisley's No Tolerance for Bullshit.
And then there's Lauren Vogelweiss, 1982. One of the first women to win a DCI individual percussion title. Keyboard, of course.
We love an I&E queen.
Drum Corps International and Percussive Notes both highlight her. She even wrote about being one of the only women on the field back then.
Can we get her biography fast-tracked to Netflix, please? Mallets and Mayhem, the Lauren Vogelweiss story.
Dun, 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 dun. Can't forget Kimberly Springer, 1999. First woman to win the DCI Best Individual Keyboard Award and snagged the prestigious PASIC Scholarship.
No joke.
Absolute queen of the marimba grind.
That's not just technique. That's tone with a vengeance.
And last but not least, Courtney Lawrence, Phantom Regiment alum who became the first female officer in the U.S. Marine Drum and Bugle Corps. That was 2019, y'all. Marine Corps Times covered it.
Officer Courtney Lawrence. Sounds like a Marvel character. Probably marches like one, too. She probably brushes her teeth in 8 to 5.
In 1992, Joanna Allen shattered a major brass ceiling, becoming the first woman ever to hold the title of drum major for the cadets of Bergen County at DCI Finals.
R.I.P. cadets.
Marking a milestone for gender integration in the activity.
Cadets 92 is vintage.
And let's not forget our dear friends from DCA.
Senior Corps love.
They had their own trailblazing tradition of badass women, both on the field and behind the scenes.
Diane Koenig, formerly Brotzman, was the first woman drum major for the Reading Buccaneers and a protege of George Parks. She marched, she taught, she sewed uniforms, recruited members, handled logistics, and stood tall on the podium for years.
She was my drum major.
Hall of Famer. Cornerstone. You don't tell the Bucs story without her.
In 1997, she was the second woman ever inducted into the Reading Buccaneers Hall of Fame.
Seriously.
And with a legacy like that, how could she not be?
And let's give a standing ovation to Holly Marino and her husband Ralph, who in 2006 launched Fusion Corps, seed planting a fierce all-age corps in northern New Jersey's ultra-competitive drum corps landscape.
Their aesthetic, unforgettable. Tuxedo vests, no headgear, class with approachability wrapped in one.
Fusion rocks.
It wasn't a visual statement. It became their brand.
And guess what? That look and energy stuck.
Yes, it did.
Fusion Corps didn't just flourish, they became one of DCA's most unique and respected voices. And now, they're climbing the ranks in DCI All-Age 2 from their new home base in Florida.
This is the kind of stuff that should be shouted from the scaffolding.
Oh, I'm shouting.
These aren't side notes. This is history in Dinkles.
No longer footnotes, but back on the 50 dead center X.
Yeah, baby.
Right where they belong, girlfriend.
We'll return after this. Are you sure you're not ready for that bugle call yet?
No. But if you ask me 12 more times, I'll say yes.
Feisty. We love it. We also would love hearing from you, our listeners, for future episodes in our ongoing Story Drum Corps series, focusing specifically on marginalized voices from the fringes of the activity. If you're a femme person with a story to tell, we're leaving a link to our Google form in the description or comments.
Check it out.
You can stay anonymous, you can share a little or a lot.
Right.
You can even tell us not to use it on air if you just want someone to listen.
Exactly.
This is a safe space, and your story matters. We're listening.
Mm-hmm.
Comrades, if you're marching alongside us and want to stay a step ahead,
Then hustle on over to patreon.com/Cinemarch Media, where you can support both of our shows.
and what are those
The
again?
Marching Revolution and Marxists at the Movies.
That's right. At the $6 tier, you get early access to our articles and news updates, so you can be the first to raise your fist in the group chat.
And the $10 tier, that unlocks early access to podcast audio, bonus content, and of course, both tiers enjoy surprise cameos from Myron Rosander Francis, the revolutionary
He
cat.
shows up whether we ask him to or not.
My little Che Guevara.
Also, check out our website at www.cinemarchmedia.com.
Because if you can't remember 2 URLs in a class struggle,
Wah, wah, wah.
are you really even ready for the revolution?
Myron thinks you are.
He also runs away from the open freezer, so your move.
So, we've named names, kicked ass, and read more vintage drum corps acronyms than any human being should be expected to. But what about the ones we can't name?
Quite right.
The corps that existed, marched, competed,
Yep.
and then vanished without so much as a worn-out snarehead left behind.
That's the thing, isn't it? The record is incomplete.
Lost forever.
They were key players, but no one remembers anymore, like lead soloists left off the page, their brilliance fading into silence before the last note even rang out. The archival footprint is paper thin for nearly all of these groups.
Nearly.
Most have been lost to vanishing budgets, scattering alumni, and the simple crime of being underestimated.
The best resource we've got is dcxmuseum.com. It lists hundreds of all-women corps, and it's a solid jumping-off point.
Right.
But most of the entries,
Nothing.
just names and cities.
Bupkis.
Maybe a sponsor or a score or two if you're lucky. It's truly criminal, and someone should pay. Let's start with men.
Exactly. These women deserve more than a PB&J. They deserve a Little Caesars for mealtime, chicken parm,
Hear, hear.
maybe some member interviews, drill sheets, a Spotify playlist, and a 3-part docu-series narrated by Angela Bassett.
But what's love Scott to do? Scott to do.
What have I told you about quoting Tina?
Only if I wear the pumps, the dress, and the 80s light socket wig? That's literally my Tuesday.
Well, if that's your Tuesday, remind me never to challenge you on a Wednesday. Anyway, speaking of big hair and bigger claims,
we pieced this together from whatever we could scrounge. Old publications, dusty blog posts, and forum threads full of unverified moments, and one guy who insists every corps was better in his day.
of course he does, but it's clear these corps mattered.
Of course.
Even the tiniest ones carried culture, resilience, identity, and sometimes just the radical act of showing up on the field as women.
Facts.
So where does that leave us now? What comes next?
Next episode, we air part 2, which will tackle today's gender-exclusive spaces. Who's still locking the doors, and who's building new ones. From all-male corps to invisible glass ceilings.
Spicy!
We're naming names.
And in part 3, we're peering into the future. Is equity actually within reach? Or is DCI just slapping rainbow tape on a broken system and calling it progress?
The story isn't over.
Not even close.
Hell, we're just turning the page.
Stay with us, and for the love of drum corps history, if your grandma marched with the senoritas, please
Por favor.
call us.
Llámanos ahora.
We'll bring punch.
So, what did we learn today?
We learned that all women drum corps out here winning trophies and defying patriarchy still got stuck doing the sewing, cooking, laundry, dishes, ironing, stitching, mothering.
Okay, America Ferrera. Is it Barbie already? We learned that Gail Royer allegedly couldn't handle women in the battery. Meanwhile, the Bonbons outplayed half the circuit and made meat puppets out of many co-ed and all-male groups.
We learned that even when fraternizing was forbidden, people still crossed boundaries to form lifelong bonds.
And we learned that if your corps was sponsored by Hormel, you were probably slinging processed, cooked-in-the-can, meat-like product between drum licks, like queens of the lunch table and the lot.
All hail the pork goddesses!
Spam and snares? Yes, please.
It's the duality of woman.
But seriously, this wasn't just a history lesson.
It was not.
These corps carved out spaces where women could be loud, proud, and powerful on their own terms.
So much this.
They built something enduring without waiting for permission.
They demanded space, and sometimes making that space louder, sharper, and way more in tune than the boys ever expected.
If you've got a story like that, loud, sharp, or just quietly revolutionary,
reach out today.
Check the description.
We've linked our Story Drum Corps submission form and the full Google notebook with all our research receipts. Transparency is power, baby.
Be sure to tune in 2 weeks from now when part 2 drops. Modern gendered spaces in drum corps.
I think we all know who we're talking about.
No comment. Tune in and find out.
And be sure to tune in for future Story Drum Corps episodes where we'll feature more stories from all-woman drum corps, because we literally just scratched the surface of the sources we have.
Quite right.
This is all we could fit into a single episode.
Indeed. We will be back in 2 weeks with part 2.
Bye for now.
Until then, I'm Edward Michael Francis.
And so am I. This has been the Marching Revolution.
Boots on the ground.
Thank you for listening to the Marching Revolution podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Through the struggle, we walk unified. Marching forward where no chains can hold. Hands in the dirt, we carve out gold. From the ashes we rise, we sing. For the power of the people is everything. Flags that wave like the dawn's first light, guiding us through the endless night. Every step shakes the earth awake. Our voices roar for justice's sake. Marching forward where no chains can hold. Hands in the dirt, we carve out gold. From the ashes we rise, we sing. For the power of the people is everything. The rhythm of hope, it pounds in our chest. We won't stop until we've done our best. The world is ours to turn to flame, and from it we'll forge a brand new name. Yeah! Grasp the future, the wheels won't stall. Shoulder to shoulder, we answer the call. Brick by brick, through sweat and strive. In unity, together we thrive.